We're just going to do a little bit of review here about operators and data types and kind of how they work together, and we'll make sure that you have the right operators and data types. So we're just going to create a new sub here. There we go. And I'm going to declare a variable and I'm going to give it a string data type. That means it will hold any character that I give it. Also going to do the same thing with my last name. Notice I type the whole variable in lowercase. You don't have to do this, but in VBA, when you declare a variable and you use uppercase, anytime you use it, it will recognize and change the case to the same case. So I do that to make sure that I don't misspell something. If I use a variable and I've misspelled it, then it will always stay in lowercase. For example, let me do this again. If I were to type it like that, notice that when I move to the next line it all stays lowercase. So that's kind of my hint that this is not a correct variable name. However, there goes to that. I'm going to set that variable to a value. And so that worked well. Now we're going to run these together. I'm going to run this program. And one thing that you can do is while the program is running, notice I'm pressing F8 to execute this program, and while it's running, you can put your cursor over any variable and you can see what value it holds. Now right now my first name is empty because I have not yet executed this line. As soon as I execute that line, then you'll notice that the variable has a value in it. Also, you'll notice that I can click on any variable, and then I'm going to click on Add Watch, and down here this will allow me to watch the value in that variable. So it's watching my last name, and then as I execute that line, it has a value in it. Okay, so that's declaring a variable and putting a value in it. Now I'm going to put together these two variables to create my whole name. What I want it to come out as is something like this. That's what I want it to be stored as. So my whole name is equal to, now I'm going to use the string concatenation operator, which is the ampersand. And that will take the two and put them together, and we'll take a look. Let's use the watch there. And the value in my whole name is Rob Clark. Now if I want to put a space in there, then I can add a character string that is just one space long, and if I run this again, now it put the space Rob Clark there. And if I wanted to put this on a worksheet in row 1, column 1, top left corner of the sheet, now as I execute this, let me see if I can't resize this just a little. I can get rid of the watch that way. Now as I execute this, we can see my whole name has Rob Clark, and we took that value and we put it there on the screen. And finish up. Now we can use another operator, as a string concatenation operator, and that's the plus or the addition operator, which also doubles as the string concatenation operator as long as it's dealing with text. And you can see that my whole name has Rob Clark in it. However, if I were to put a favorite number there or something, I'm going to get a type mismatch, because I'm going to hit debug and it's going to show me the line of code where the error occurred, and it's waiting to execute that. If I try to execute it, I'm going to get an error. Now be careful not to just ignore errors, but actually try and read them and understand them. What it's saying here is that on this line of code I'm using a data type that's not appropriate. And what's happening is I'm using the addition operator with character strings and a number. Now if I had just used it with character strings, as you saw before, it worked. But when I'm using it with character strings and a number, it's going to say, hey, I'm trying to add the number 43 to these numbers here, and they don't add up. If I was to do, put another number there, then of course it would work, and it put the string 99 there. But when I try and add text or character strings with numbers, these don't work. So you got to be careful on your operators and make sure you use the correct operators, and also make sure that you read your error messages. Let's do a couple others here real quick. We'll just delete this out. We'll put sale amount as integer, and oops. Now we're using integers here, and let's see, I'm going to say the sale amount is, we'll say $99.98. And the tax amount, is going to be equal to the sale amount times, I'm going to use a multiplication operator, 0.06. So that'll get the sales tax amount. And then the sale total is equal to the sale amount plus the tax amount. Now an alternate way to do this would have been to say sale total is equal to the sale amount times 1.06, and that also would have worked. Now you notice I put a single quote right here. This is what we call, it's an apostrophe, but it's also a comment, a line. Notice that it's green. A line that begins, or any point in the line, I could put a comment right here, and notice the back part of this line turned green. What's going on there is that's a character that VBA recognizes as just saying ignore everything to the right of this character. So we usually use that, I'm going to take that alternate out, to put in our code a reminder of what we're doing here. And this just might be, it might say something like, calculate the total sale amount and tax, or something like that. So as we're going to run through this, I'm going to click on all of these variables, and we're going to add a watch, and we're going to add a watch, and we're going to add a watch. We've got some from the last time, some old values that I had there. So I'm just going to delete that watch, delete that watch. So there I've got the three values that I want to watch. So now let's go ahead and run through this. Notice that before I started running, the values down here were out of context. You can't hold a value in a variable once the program stops running. That's why we use the spreadsheet to put the numbers there. So now as we go through, notice the initial value to all integers is 0. And notice it took this $99.98 and it's storing it as 100. That's because this is an integer. I picked a data type that doesn't work for what I'm trying to do. Integers get rounded, and we'll see which way. But integer, if you have an amount with decimals, then it does not store that precision. And so the tax amount is going to be $6, and the total sale is going to be 106. Now notice the difference if I were to change this to double. Now as we run through this, I store the $9.98, store $5.99.88, and 105.97.88, which would probably round to 105.98. Now let's go the other direction. I'm going to go back to integer. And I'm going to change this to 29 cents. Now let's go through and see what happens. Notice that it rounded down because this is an integer. Before, when it was above 50 cents, it rounded it up to $100. Now it rounded it down to $99. And that one's at $6, and that's at 105. So these all get rounded down. Another data type that we can use when we're dealing with money, reset. Oops. Is currency, which keeps our decimal precision to 4 decimals, which is sufficient for what we have. So that's just kind of a brief thing about data types. Make sure that you use the correct data type for the type of data that you want to store. And a few things on operators. There's the equal operator, which is assignment. It's assigning the value on the right side to the value on the left side. And then we've used some of the math operators, which are the ones that we'll be using the most. And we've used a concatenation operator.